Welcome, everyone, to Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. In this series, we speak to real estate investing professionals and experts about their knowledge, about their experience, about their learnings in life to help you to help carve your own personalized real estate investing strategy based on some of these things that you may hear people say, and you say, oh, I like that, and I can put it into my strategy. And oh, you can, it might even spur ideas that may not be that exact strategy that someone's doing, but it may actually spur ideas for yourself. So we want to encourage everyone to create your own personalized real estate investing strategy that's as unique as each one of us are. Like each of us have, different starting points in life, our age, our, how much money we have, how much time we have, what we like in life, what our life goals are. And all of those should go around real estate investing. Derek is my guest today, and we were just speaking about that. About your real estate investing should be about, what did you say there? Enjoy life through real estate investing, and that is my motto too. So how can we don't want real estate investing to become like another job. Most of you are out there, and I was there too until last year. Corporate job, and we were doing real estate investing to get out of that and to start enjoying life. So let's start seeing how we can do it through the real estate investing in our strategies. My name is Debbie Balfour. I'm a real estate investing coach and a real estate investor myself. And I coach real estate investors to create and build that personalized real estate investing strategy so that you can scale efficiently and start enjoying time and financial freedom. Why not start enjoying it today? Why not start being more efficient with our time today? So my guest today is Derek Peever, and Derek is, let me read this off a bit so I don't miss. There's a whole corporate profile on his website that we'll give you a link to, but some little tidbits that I pulled out of here. He grew up in various parts of the Fraser Valley and the Lower Mainland here in BC, where I'm also located. And he excelled in the West Coast marine industry for over a decade before he found his passion through real estate investing. And Derek has done over 200 real estate investing transactions since 2006 and 5 active businesses. He's also a husband and a dad. So I wanted to share that with you, something that's not on his corporate profile, but I knew that. And I think you're an enthusiast, water enthusiast, boats, right?
I am, yes.
So
Very much.
through networking, I found out this about Derek. So yeah. So Derek, well, actually, we're going to talk about, our topic today is talking about super suites, and Derek is going to get into what is that and things. So, but let's talk a bit about start a bit about you and how did you get into real estate investing, Derek?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Debbie, for having me on your podcast. And thanks to Darcy for the connection. I'm excited to be here. So, as you mentioned, my family background is actually in the marine industry. So, my grandpa, my dad, my older brother, they're all tugboat captains
Oh,
at
cool.
Seaspan. My grandpa's passed away now.
Did they ever pull in to be a pilot, like to be pilot things for cruise ships, pulling them
Yes,
into
they
port?
do. They do actually. Yes.
Ah.
My grandpa back in the day, it was more towing logs and barges and things
Mhm.
like that on smaller boats. But my dad and my older brother, and now actually my nephew, are doing ship docking on tractor
Oh.
tugs. And as you mentioned, I worked on the tugboats for a decade. So
Mhm.
from when I was 17 till I was 27. And that was kind of my path in life, in rich dad poor dad terms, in the employee quadrant, and saving up my money. I had a nice salary, I had nice time off. I was very fortunate that a lady named Kelly Fry, local realtor that
Mhm.
told me about Rich Dad Poor Dad in 20, or I guess that would have been 2005. So I had a chance encounter with this lady. I was riding in the back of my friend's car, and we went to pick up his boss from the Vancouver airport. And I just so happened to go with him. And it was destiny, because the whole way back from the airport to Pitt Meadows, which is where I live now half the year, um, she told us about Rich Dad Poor Dad and her properties in Winnipeg. And, the very next day, I went to the chapters in Langley and bought the book and just tore through it, went back down, got the second book, Cash Flow Quadrant, got the third book, Guide to Investing, into the other people's money, OPM, into the real estate, and that just started my journey. And I took the little bit of savings that I had and my personal line of credit. And instead of buying my detached house in Aldergrove and my Harley and my boat that I had planned, I realized that those were depreciating liabilities, and I knew that I had to buy assets that would buy those for me later with delayed gratification. So I took my money and went with my best friend, Carson Kahn, and my dad and his dad, and we went 4 ways on a condo in Agassiz, BC.
Mm.
We bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo built in 1973 or something, for $65,000. I'll never forget, we put in $5,000 each, 4 ways, and that was enough to put down 25% down and fund a renovation that we did
Wow.
that we did ourselves. So, we painted, we did what we call the brush nickel conversion from gold to brush nickel, changed the light fixtures, nearly electrocuted myself. Um, and then we were able to raise the rent from, I think it was $525 to, 550 or something. And the tenant gave notice, and we were just terrified. How are we going to cover this, next month out of our own earned income? And oh, now we've done it. We upset the tenant and they're gone. But fortunately, we added value to the property, and we had just, a bit better pictures, even though we took them ourselves still at that stage. Better maintenance, quick to return calls, and we were able to rent it for $750 or something. And that's kind of been like our path in real estate. After that, we bought, someone knocked on our door while we were renovating, 133. Northgate is the name of the building, for those of you that know the 3 buildings in Agassiz across from the A&W. They said, "Hey, you guys have to buy this one on the 3rd floor. It's only $50,000. And it had feces in the closet and it was just beat up, but we brought all our tools up there, painted it, baseboards, brush nickel, and then we're able to carve out some nice cash flow on that one. When we were almost done renovating that one, we got another knock on the door on the 2nd floor for $2,000 more, 52,000. We bought our 3rd unit. And years later, I think 3.5 years later, we sold all 3 of those condos to one gentleman, a school teacher from Mission, who's also like a creative real estate guy from seminars and stuff, Norm. And he actually bought those 3 as a bundle. I don't think there was any realtor fees. And he included a vehicle as part of his down payment. So I've never done anything like that since. Like, you could actually include a necklace or whatever, but I learned about that on that deal. And so I took uh, what was it? A Hyundai Sidekick or an Isuzu Trooper convertible Jeep looking thing. And I took that as part of my share of the profit on the 4-way deal, and drove up to my mom's house at Christmas time with a big bow tie on it, and gave that to my mom because she was driving like a real beater. So that was the start of kind of real estate and what it could do. And we did really well. We sold the one for 65 for 90 something. The other ones went up about the same over that 3-year period. Even though in 2006, March, when we started buying, everybody thought the market had peaked, kind of similar to today. And after that, we bought a townhouse in Pitt Meadows for 165,000. Fully gutted it, $20,000 reno. We used to do tile flooring ourselves and basically everything except for heavy electrical plumbing ourselves. Sweat equity. And at that point, it was still my dad and Terry as 25% owners, investors, but we got the mortgage. We put in equal money. We did all the work. So it was really a sweet deal for them.
Hmm.
And right around then is when I ran out of my own money. So that's when I had to start turning it into a business and going to my tugboat captains, going to aunts and uncles, friends of my dad. A lot of living room conversations where You talk them into the deal, you talk them right back out of the deal. Uh, and a lot of no's. Like we bought Russell Westcott from Rain's Joint Venture Secrets package, and I
Mhm.
must have listened to those CDs 100 times. Just driving in my car, how to sit with people, overcome objections, justify your role, which you have to add value to the deal. So it could be through physical renovations or through strategy. So we started getting into rent to own. I used to be that guy driving around town with a "We Buy Homes for Cash Fast"
Mm.
vehicle.
And
My
flyers.
mom, yeah, my mom's vehicle I gave her also said that. So there was a catch to the free vehicle. But like you said before we started recording, it's like having tools in the tool belt, right? So I look at all
Mhm.
these strategies. Sometimes I might see where I could still apply like a rent to own situation, although it's not my main business model anymore, because I guess that's a nice segue into super suites is that around 2007, I was at a rain event in Coquitlam. We used to meet quarterly back then. And a lady from Edmonton. I used to say Calgary, but Patrick Francie corrected me. I think she's from Edmonton, named Catherine Brooker, came out and spoke about furnished rentals that they were doing to the oil and gas industry.
Mhm.
And there was just a hospital opening in Abbotsford at the time, which is kind of where we set up our base. And I had a nursing company had contacted me asking if they could rent one of my unfurnished rentals furnished. And then this presentation happened, like the next day or something.
Wow, it was
And I
like
was like, this is a sign. So I
destiny.
just took a lot of notes, and the condo that we had just bought, a new construction condo that was our first one ever, in the Element for 192,000, right on Marshall Road by the hospital.
Mhm.
I said, let's give it a try. Let's rent it furnished. And it went so well basically that we never did another unfurnished rental. Until more recently, we've started doing a few long-term rentals, but for many, many years, we had more demand than we could set up new furnished rentals. Like in 2006, Airbnb didn't even exist. So I like to tell people we started before Airbnb, and furnished and equipped caves have been around for each season since the caveman days. Um, we're members of the Corporate Housing Providers Association, or at least were until recently, where it's North America wide. My mentors in that business in corporate housing, like Terry Rogers from High Street, started in Expo. So she's
Mm.
kind of like the first one in the Vancouver scene that really was doing it on a bigger scale and carving out a legit industry, because we all seem to get painted with that Airbnb nightly brush.
Yeah, it's amazing how they came in. Like I used to travel like with VRBO all the time. Like
Mhm.
for over 20 years, I
Mm,
always went to Hawaii and Whistler and Tofino and all these places. And it was always with VRBO. And
mm.
then Airbnb comes in and now it's like you Google something, now Airbnb is the term instead of short-term rentals.
They say it's a genre, right? And I
Yeah,
remind the strata councils, Airbnb is a tech platform,
exactly.
and you should not name a tech platform as being banned in your bylaws. That's like saying you can't use the internet or something. It's really, if you're set for minimum 1 month or minimum 3 months or minimum 1 year, like I'm in Texas right now. We can get to that later if we have time, but
Mhm.
here, it's not illegal to be on Airbnb, and I have a 1 month
It's just an
minimum.
advertising platform. That's all it is.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be Furnish Finder, it could be
Yeah.
Zillow, it could be your own website. But yeah, so it's back to an origin story, I guess, of
Mhm.
Super Suites is, we've been doing it quite a while. We started in Abbotsford. We expanded across Canada. So we made it to 4 provinces on the advance before I started retreating back. And now I'm looking forward to kind of consolidating just to the Fraser Valley and Central Texas.
Okay.
We can get into that in more detail if you,
Mhm.
but that's kind of how Super Suites came about. I've owned it myself since 2011 when my partner left. And what we do at Super Suites is we help people that have had flood, fire, maybe a tree has fallen on their home. or any reason that makes the home temporarily unlivable. We work with insurance companies to kind of de-stress the situation, offer them basically just bring luggage and food. And we can do same day, if they have a flood or fire that morning, we can get them tucked in that night. We just operate under the Residential Tenancy Act like all other landlords. A key difference with us over other operators out there is that we actually own the properties. So I'm a part owner. Like I told you in the beginning, we started doing joint ventures, and that's just the
Mhm.
model I kept going into the corporate housing. And we like to add a lot of value to our investors because they can get higher rents than they could achieve on their own. We also, have a trusted brand and a lot of systems and checklists for everything. And also just maintain the properties to a very high standard. Like we do cleaning service every 2 weeks or a minimum of monthly. And we have coding. So I often say corporate housing, I believe, is the best way to hold quality residential real estate.
Yeah.
Because even if you have a good tenant, but you get the property back 5 to 8 years later, you have to do flooring maybe. Maybe they didn't scrub out the shower for 5 years. The appliances might need to be replaced. So we know if people are smoking in there, if they're even wearing shoes. And then when we go to sell a property, 5 to 8 years typically after in the holding period, um, it shows like a 10, you know.
Yep. And you don't have to do any staging. It's already
We
staged.
actually really like selling furnished to first time buyers. Like that's a happy end
Yeah.
because, they get to finance it in typically, and that stuff's getting very expensive these days.
I actually just did that. So I had a condo in Abbotsford that
Mhm.
was a midterm rental because it wasn't like the strata wouldn't allow. And actually, Abbotsford, the city of Abbotsford, wouldn't allow anything less than 30 days. So I
Right.
had that and I had it furnished and I've sold it and I sold it with all the furniture and the decor. So
Way to
exactly because
go.
yeah,
Because, and you almost throw it in because the cost to tear it down and store it potentially or
exactly. Storage, moving
uh,
van, that's your time and everything else. Yeah, I offered it for 3,000 and I
mhm,
thought the time and everything else included, it was worth it. I just
that's
came,
wise.
took out my supplies stuff
Mhm,
in
mhm,
there. That was easy
mhm.
to just put into my car and yeah, so it is awesome. I think it's an awesome model. Like the
What building were you in? Thank you.
Fern Street, Fernwood Manor. So it's an
Did you
older,
know
yeah.
I was also an owner of Fernwood Manor?
Were you?
Yeah, so I owned unit 304.
Oh, I own 305.
Wow. So yeah, that's an interesting story. Quick short version is I think it was 2009. We bought that. The market had fallen off, things were on deep sale, but there was a lot of buyer demand.
Hmm.
Scooping up these deals, but we paid like 162 or something for it, like 1150 square foot, top floor corner, two
Yep.
separate balconies, overlooking what we knew was going to be a new park, but not everybody knew. So that was
Hmm.
our value play. But we had so many nightmares
Oh,
in
so
that.
you're in 33870.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
in 33850.
nice.
Yeah.
And we had some crazy stories in there with tenants and stuff. My big lesson on that one that I learned at Rain, is the most important thing to people is curb appeal. And
Mhm.
although my suite was renovated, my customer service was good. I used to drive out from Cloverdale and people would no show me because the lights are flickering out front and there's a swastika spray painted on that stayed there for like 6 months or
Yeah.
or you run into some people in the building that are kind of unsavory. That's kind of a tough pocket. But I started really focusing on buildings that had really good curb appeal because
Yes.
I did have a lot of vacancy, a lot of money out of my pocket. And then eventually we sold that one. This is a key lesson that I learned from Randy Dick, the realtor, is not to sell too soon in a recovery. And this is the one that I think of because I held it for like 7, 8 years. And as soon as I could make a modest profit, like as soon as it went back to like 180 or something, 185, I was like, let's get rid of this dog. And my investor, that was the lowest return an investor ever got with us, and it was
Mm,
5% per year. And they were really happy because it was like they almost forgot they owned it, and it was a forced savings plan. It was actually my
right.
mom. Um, but we worked for 7, 8 years for peanuts.
Mm,
And if I just would have hung in there and let the market get a little bit more momentum, I could have made a real nice
mm,
profit in the next year or two. But it's always good, like Don Campbell says, to leave something on the table for the next guy. So,
exactly. I mean, I bought for 229. I did
mhm.
45,000 in renovations. I
Wow.
converted the dining room into a bedroom, right?
Wow.
And
That's
I
amazing.
sold in February
Mm-hmm.
for so I bought in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
December 2020, and I sold in February for 393,000.
Nailed it.
So
Yeah, that's a good return right there. Good.
yeah, so it was a good, it's yeah. And that building is now like every year they're improving it. So like I show the strata minutes
Mm-hmm.
and show, they're planning to do now they're doing the walls, the outside, the corridors, they're painting, they're
Who's the
replacing all the
strata
carpets.
management these days?
Is it Bradshaw?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's probably
No, I
boring to
can't
your
remember.
listeners
Anyway, yeah.
anyways, but
Yeah.
that's good to
Yeah.
hear that it's heading in the right direction. That's
Yep.
awesome. Yeah.
And that's something like I want people to think about too. Is when you go in, like look to see how you can add a room. Like I added non-structural walls.
Mm-hmm.
Like I filled in a wall and I put up another wall with a door, and I added just in the appraisal at
Mm-hmm.
that time I had added $30,000 by
That's
walls.
genius. Yeah, that's a value play, right? Like you have to
And
have some sort of a value play in
yeah,
your investing, especially if you're raising other people's money. It can't just be a vanilla, let's wait for the market deal.
yeah. I
Yeah.
also added $500 extra in rental.
I wish I would have thought of that for 304. I could have done that. That was
Yeah.
really smart.
So let's talk a bit about super sweet. So now
Sure.
you're you've started to, so what I'm hearing you say though is that you decided to start use buy now new,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right? So and I do know, but I want others to think, like how do you get those new ones?
Sure. Yeah. So, we did 20 or so unfurnished where we would buy, renovate, raise rent. That was
Mm-hmm.
a kind of our value play. We dabbled in other strategies I mentioned. But when we started with the furnished rentals, I had heard about a term called super suites coming out of Alberta. And I just started using it in our ads because it referred to like a fully furnished and equipped condo. Used
Mm-hmm.
it for a few years just on Kijiji and Craigslist, and then checked to see if it was protected, and it wasn't. So that's when the trademark Super Suites was born, and we only bought from that point on in British Columbia pre-sale because our rents as corporate rentals could support the new prices.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like, many reasons I can get into, but I really like the warranties. Property management is tough. So if you have a team as well, it's easier for them if the property's new. So, if something goes wrong, you have a contact at the builder for the first few years. You develop trusted relationships with a few builders because they're not all created equal by any means. So you become loyal and develop relationships and you follow builders. So we have, like 3 builders that have done the majority of everything we've bought in. And sometimes we may buy 2 at a time. Sometimes we bought 50 in one shot, 50.
Wow.
So you want to get to a point where even if it's 2 units, maybe, but 4 is kind of the sweet spot where you start getting a bit of a wholesale discount.
Okay.
So I tell people, even if you're going to buy your own deal or two, and I'm going to buy my own deal or two, we might want to form a buyers group and go to the release event and say, hey, if we buy 4, then can we get an extra parking stall, us extra storage, maybe a cashback? we typically always give them full asking price because that sets precedent for the next buyer and that's what they want. And then
Mhm.
it's like, I think Henry Ford said, you name the price, I'll name the terms, right? So give them their full price, but then say, hey, if we could put 4 stickers on the board and get the buying frenzy going, or 8 or whatever it may be, um, can you, and we may not come with a realtor once you get to know them, then you can get some pretty good, like typically you get early friends and family discount off the hop that they offer to their VIP list. And then I like to show up first on the early VIP day when the board is clear and pick out my unit. So I call it pick of the litter.
So you get like top floor, corner units,
Yeah,
all
so
right,
that's the
great.
key thing about super suites is our crown jewel policy, which is something I learned from a businessman, my mentor Terry Kahn. So he taught me, he was actually in the garbage business, oddly enough, but he still had a crown jewel policy. And it had to be top floor, it had to be a penthouse, had to be a corner, had to be with a view, had to be a walkout garden suite, something remarkable, like no leftovers, no weird floor plans, no cheap. You pay a little bit extra so you're not on the noisy side.
Right.
Um, knowing what the future view will be, stuff like that, best you can. Um, so yeah, and the other things about buying would be maybe you can get cash back, maybe you can get a vendor take back mortgage, um,
GST.
maybe you can get a flexible deposit schedule. Um, maybe in some cases they'll even cover the deposit for you and charge you interest. Or, you know, it could be the builder partners with you and
Mhm.
you buy a bunch of units and make an investor group. And that's been the case. Once they saw what we could do, they said, well, why don't we just partner with you instead of all these other people?
Right.
Um, but I really like buying new. When the building gets to a point where the shine's starting to come off, the old guard of the strata council that really knows the building and lives in the building starts to move on, and they're not enforcing the bylaws, the patio rules, the parking, the management keeps changing, it's musical chairs with the budget, then it's time to go. When it's a nice seller's market, then we will
Mhm.
purge to new inventory. Because also with super suites, we like to have the best new resort style type I like A sites. Like if you're looking at A, B, C, D as a
Yeah.
rating system, I don't want like a little 12 unit townhouse complex infill site. Like I want something that has amenities and is like on the lake or something remarkable.
Mhm.
Typically a mid to larger size project. There's a line where it's too big, where they over densify it, where you're just crammed in, these townhouses.
Yes.
But a good example that you may know of a done right is Waterstone in Cloverdale.
Mhm.
We've been in there right since the first phase, and that builder, it's actually a Chinese developer behind it, but Polygon built it. And rumor has it, they under densified it. So they didn't go to the max. And it's very
Right.
tasteful because it's like layered and you have views and it's 3-story and a lot of 3 and 4 story instead of like 6.
Yeah.
And it's got a 15,000 square foot clubhouse. And that's it was the best new residential development in BC in 2010 when it started. And that's been kind of a flagship in BC for us. Yeah, buying new, there's a lot of benefits. You're not inheriting somebody's do-it-yourself renos or Lord knows what. Um, yes, you have to pay tax and transfer tax and all that stuff, but if you do it right and you do it very cautiously with pre-sale investing, by the time you get the keys, you typically have like they do structured price increases along the
Mhm.
way. That's coming. So you wind up with a nice lift. Let's say you put down 40, $50,000 down for a typical 10%. That's a function of the market demand. Like if it's high demand, they'll want 25, 30% down up front. If it's a balanced or buyer's market, maybe you can do 10% down. That's what most banks require. But
And
then by the time, sorry, go ahead.
just before you move on there, just as to be there, I think like what you're saying right now, I think this is a market where this strategy could apply because we're people aren't buying as much because of the interest rates right now.
Oh,
So,
heck yes.
but developers have got supply right now.
Very
So this is the
motivated.
time so like everybody's like, oh, it's not the time to buy, or it's not. This is actually opportunity time if you've got some money.
Very much so. Yes, with the interest rates where they are, and the fact that the government's just destroying investor morale and appetite with
Mhm.
all their make work projects and punishment of the investor middle class, like the mom and pop investors that I consider
Yeah, with
myself
the
one of.
flipping tax, the corporate,
Oh, it's
the
terrible.
capital
It's
gains. There's no, you can't charge for short-term rentals now. They like you can't expense.
I
Yeah.
just had to pay $6,000 to our accountant to prepare this last minute government project. And then literally at the 11th hour, they said, oh, don't worry about it. But I still had to pay the accountant 6,000.
Was that
And
the UHT?
one of those, yeah, I lose track and then we just start again next year. But the accountants and the lawyers, they say they hate it too and blame the government, but it's a windfall for
They're making lots
all
of
the
money. Yeah.
bureaucrats. Oh my goodness. So
Mhm.
if you have a rental and your cash flow's 200 to 500 a month if you're lucky, and now you have all these annual anyways, it's don't get me started on
Yeah, that's a tangent. So let's get back
yes,
to
buying strategies,
yeah. So
I
you're
might.
saying about about going to the bank.
Oh, okay. So the opportunity with
Mhm.
pre-sales.
Yeah.
So let me say this as well. My philosophy on buying pre-sales, there's two times to buy. Okay. So the typical one, especially in BC, would be the best time to buy is when the developer's trying to get their initial sales to trigger their construction financing. So that's when they're very motivated. That's when you get a deal. Once they get
Mhm.
construction financing, typically less motivated. They're over that hurdle and they'll bring them to market, maybe become a bit more motivated leading up to completion, depending on how they're selling. The other good time to buy, which I've done in Calgary, is when they have standing inventory. So it's built, it's move-in ready, it's not selling, and they want their money out to go on to their next project. That's when they roll out the red carpet for you. And you walk in and you say, okay, if I take these last 3 units, provided you can still get good unit selection, there's this building in Southeast Calgary that we bought 8 units in called Stonecroft Auburn Bay. It's in a really nice master plan community with a lake and amenities, and it's an awesome, desirable area. The builder's from Abbotsford.
Oh,
So I would sit with them in Abbotsford and negotiate at his office. And I would go out there, but the first unit we bought for say 330,000, then we bought one more. Then we bought one more. Then we bought one more. And all the way down, they got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper down to like 260. But we were like doubling down because we knew that, it would be worth north of
oh,
400
yeah,
down the
definitely.
road, and just good desirable. So those are the two times to do it.
These are some great tips, Derek.
Well,
Really
this
great
is how
tips.
I love to buy, and this is even how I do it in Texas now. Once you get spoiled with buying pre-sale, I have bought a few resale in Texas, but it's very rare. Um, but yeah, where else could we go on the buying strategy? How can I help people with that? There's probably some more things that I missed, but did you want to move on to another?
Yeah, let's you're talking Texas. So what brought
Sure.
you to Texas? Why Texas?
Okay.
What are you
So
doing there?
at Rain, the real estate investment network, that's where I feel like I first actually learned, like, Rich Dad's great for philosophy, but the actual nuts and bolts of like what drives real estate, like they used to put on this acre event all weekend and they would walk you through all the steps, like how to source a property, how to manage it, how to market it, how to exit it, fund it. And they talked about the 12 fundamentals of real estate, right? Are you familiar with these? So it's the number one thing is job growth. right?
Mhm.
Population growth, transportation improvements, critical infrastructure expansion like sewers, airports. You know, my favorite ones, the easy ones, job growth and transportation improvements. So if you have a lot of quality job growth and you have transportation improvements, you kind of get in front of that path of progress. You have a long, investment horizon of 4 to 10 to 15 years, and it's worked out pretty good, for me. Like I've never exited an unprofitable deal, and we've even
Mhm.
been in Alberta for the last, 15 years. We're hanging on stubbornly to a few, but I plan to keep that track record. But that's what took me to Texas basically was I'd always dabbled with going across to the US. We expanded across Canada, like I said. Washington State never really made sense numbers wise, like in the Bellevue area or anything. It's just so expensive.
There's too similar. They're too close to be seen, like, and it's similar sort of pricing and but then we have exchange rate.
Yeah, 1.38, I think right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think Canadian dollar, I'm no economist, but I feel like it's gonna get worse, versus the US. It
Mhm.
has certainly since May of 2022 when I started investing in Texas. But yeah, we're in the North Austin area, which is like the Fraser Valley outside of Austin. So we invest in Leander, which I like to say is the Langley of
Okay.
Austin, 45 minutes out. It already has light rail, which is cool. We're also in Georgetown, which is kind of like the Chilliwack.
Okay, further out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I live in Liberty Hill half the year, which is, right there beside Chilliwack kind of thing.
Okay.
And the main path of progress in Austin is north and south. There is growth to the east and west, but the predominant path of progress is to the north.
Okay.
So that's what they call the Silicon Hills, the all the businesses and people relocating from California because it has a very nice topography.
Mhm.
Like Texas is kind of like BC. There's such diverse geographic areas. And the primo, is the hill country, Central Texas. It's very beautiful, a lot of like rivers and creeks and lakes and hilliness and very lush green, almost like subtropical climate.
Mhm.
And just a lot of tech growth, with all the big names, like you mentioned, Verbo, their headquarters are at the Domain, which is kind of like the second core. So there's downtown Austin, but then there's the Domain, which is like north of Austin, kind of halfway between where I am and downtown Austin. So like 20 minutes from me. It's got the light rail running through it, and just it's almost more popular than downtown Austin. Um, and just connected with a realtor on YouTube. Bought our own house for half the year, so we have a secondary residence, and I'm working on my E2 investor visa, which is for an existing business in Canada expanding into the US.
Okay.
And a lot of my friends have been doing this. I'm sure people that are going to Florida or going to Tennessee or going to Idaho or going to Costa Rica because
Yep.
of the way things have been going. And that was basically the final push that made me take advantage of the obvious economic opportunity was the whole, you know, way things have been going in Canada and just really not agreeing with that. Like I'm big on personal freedoms and less government, less tax. Like in Texas, for example, when you buy a brand new property,
Mhm.
not only is it best I can figure rule of thumb 33% cheaper per square foot after the currency conversion. But you don't pay property transfer tax. That's huge. You don't pay any GST or anything like that. So, the first investment property I bought down here, I bought for 640,000. It's like a 3,700 square foot townhouse with a private elevator and a rooftop terrace. But that one was actually resale. But I've since bought a brand new for 750, same type of thing in Leander with the same builder, and it was 750. Like I kept asking them, I'm like, where is the catch? It was like title
Where's
fees.
the hidden fees?
Yeah, they use title companies, which are much cheaper than lawyers,
Okay.
and they're very good. Like they're a lot of what they do is more modern than what we're used to. Like for simple things, like for example, when you buy a property, the seller's already going to have like really nice home inspections ready for you.
Mhm.
And everything is tech, so it's like you get a ping for this, and there's a transaction manager, and they make sure you have utility options sent to you, and it's just very like easy for the it's much better for the consumer. The lending experience, because I'm a foreign national, was challenging. Like they
Mhm.
charge you a couple points extra. So that's been the biggest barrier to entry, is like 8, 9% interest
Mm.
on the loans compared to like 6% in Canada right now. I just got on a commercial loan from Prospera. So it's still much more expensive that way. But the townhouse is renting for 6,000 US, which is like 8,300 or whatever it is Canadian. So, I like to, my new slogan is earn money in USD and spend in CAD. I think that's a nice,
Yes, that makes sense. That totally makes sense.
yes.
So these places, Derek, that you're buying, like, so in for super suites here in Canada, most of them are like condos, etc. Are you doing the same sort of thing in Texas, or are you doing bigger, more expensive homes?
So our specialty has always been strata. So that was just the path that we got in. Like I mentioned, my first properties I ever bought were strata. We
Mhm.
have owned a few detached homes, but there's things about managing strata that I actually like, as long as it's a well-managed strata, well managed as it
Mhm.
gets. There's definitely benefits. Like you can think of things like big ticket items or landscaping and things like that. But the interesting thing in Texas that I learned is, unless you're downtown Austin or in the Domain, there's no such thing as like what we think of as condos,
Mhm.
they would think of as walk-up apartments.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a ton of very nice wood frame walk-up apartments where there's like 8 buildings, in a complex with no elevators, which I find kind of bizarre that none of the renters are afforded the luxury of elevators.
But that reduces maintenance.
Big time. And they have amazing amenities, right? Like
Mhm.
huge clubhouses, huge resort style, a lot of those types of mega rental projects with amazing amenities. And they rent for like 1,800 to 2,400, a lot of rental stock right now and a lot of
Mhm.
supply, which is actually making it more affordable for the renters, which is a good thing that they're trying to achieve in Canada, but not doing it through supply like they are
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Um, but what I've kind of found is my niche is the townhomes. So I'm buying what's called the brownstone at the Summit and the brownstone at Northline. So it's like a townhouse complex that is part of like $1 billion development.
A
So there's new
community they're
retail
building.
shops, like these walkable urban centers, which is kind of a new concept down here.
15-minute cities kind of
Yeah,
idea.
it's
Walk
it's
like.
yeah, it's walkable.
Mhm.
If you have a flood or fire in your house, most people be willing to go to a place like that rather than go out to the like more of a farther drive potentially in a different direction.
Yes.
But I have considered starting super suites detached down here, because you can still buy in the 300s, brand new construction, 2,500 square feet. You can get cool things. Like I like having something remarkable, like maybe a rancher with a 3-car garage, or they have these really cool RV garages on these little detached homes. So you have a little garage and then a mother garage, and then
Mm,
you have some sort of a unique selling proposition, right?
right.
Because
Yeah.
one of the other things that we do in Abbotsford is actually resort style retirement living. Like that place where we bought 50 units. Now we have
Yeah.
more actually, because there was phase two and we added a few in the building, but quite a few in this one location in Abbotsford, Mahogany at Mill Lake and Onyx at Mahogany. But we do seniors rentals there as well as corporate rentals.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
it's kind of like a three-legged stool. We do the corporate rentals, we do the seniors rentals, and then we do what we call just, market rentals,
mm,
PeeverCon, long term. They're still
mhm,
all inclusive.
mhm.
And I've been able to look at those again because stuff cash flows in Texas.
Right.
In theory, it's
Mhm.
still tough with the interest rate, but it's close. And I'm just trying to crack that code.
Well, I can see like, especially emergency housing, I can see the need for like something bigger because I needed something bigger
I
right?
remember
So,
that.
right? So like I'm with this that I'm in right now is a 5 bedroom home. We
Mhm.
needed that because that's what we had. And I work from home. My son worked from home. Now my other son's working from home.
Mm.
But so we needed something bigger. We couldn't like a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom just wasn't big enough for us.
It's getting really tough. Like a few years ago, we were scooping up 3 and 4 bedroom townhouses in Surrey, Langley, for five in the 500s and the 600s.
Mhm.
And now, at 1 million, it doesn't look so good. And in the pre-sales that we've been buying, we've been forced to buy, more like 1 beds and one in dens and one in flexes and squeak out a 2 bedroom,
Mhm.
um, just because of the price point. So
Yes, yeah.
yeah, I hear
But
you.
with Texas like that, if you could get bigger, and I think there would still be a demand for it because like I said, I needed, that's what I needed.
Here's the other cool thing about Texas that we're trying to have as part of our brand down here is like a unique experience. So check this out. At the Brownstone at the Summit in Georgetown, there's live music 3 nights a week in the HOA, which is Homeowners
Right?
Association.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't pay anything. You just walk up to the little square, play cornhole. There's outdoor dining, all these restaurants to choose from. Everyone kind of community watches the kids. Um, we're right on Rivery Park. That's where I'm at today. Right behind me is Rivery Park, where there's trails and the San Gabriel River Valley and the Blue Hole, and it's just like a really cool experience. And then at Northline, the brownstone at Northline, it's like walk a stone throw to the red line and take the train to the Domain, take the train to downtown. It's a lot of it's under construction still, but there's a lot of healthcare being built right around there. There's, retail and shopping and experiential shopping, dining type outdoor stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing a lot of cool other stuff like Leander Springs. It's going to be a $1 billion 5 acre crystal clear lagoon
No,
with
what?
townhouses. And then there's another
I
one.
want to come.
You're welcome to, yeah. And there's another one where it's going to be like the world's biggest surf park, where the standing waves and it's like
Mm.
a whole residential, retail, commercial development around this feature. So I just really like these kind of landmark A site locations.
I'm gonna have to tell my son about this because he's a he doesn't like the term. He's an influencer, a content
Mhm.
creator,
Mhm.
right? But both my kids, like the other one is his editor. He does the editing for him and for
Okay.
for so- for content creators. So they're thinking like they would
I might
like
need
to.
his services.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll connect you with him. He's
Cool.
very good. But yeah, we like they're interested in traveling the world and seeing things, but like they want to take their all their stuff with them and they want a place to stay for like digital nomads. So they
Hmm.
want to they live there for a while, work
Experience
from
it.
there and
Yeah.
experience it. Yeah, and they've been
Yeah.
thinking about Texas. So
Well, supersweetsusa.com. They can check those out.
okay, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we lived there 3 months last year in our product, like in our super suites, while our
Mhm.
home was under construction, and just loved it. I could have lived there forever.
I think
You know,
that's a great tip, actually. I think that every landlord should live in their, at least a week or so, live in the property before they rent it out.
product testing, right?
Yep.
You have to be careful with that around the rules and regulations and all that good stuff. But if you call it product testing and there's no money exchanged, like like my right hand man in Abbotsford, my operations manager, his family is in town right now because he's having a baby. And
Hmm.
I said, listen, you guys just stay there. I've got vacant suites anyways. There's not going to be any money exchange, but you're going to give me the most thorough
Feedback.
report on the beds and on the coffee maker and on the guy upstairs. And, that real, like, you can do your systematic check of everything in the suite, but until you, like you say, really experience, that
Hmm.
3 a.m. Train that goes by or whatever it is, then you really don't know.
Yeah, definitely. This has been amazing, Derek. You're such an inspiration. And, we talked about so many different things, but I think it's such great tips that other people can, implement. You don't have to implement it on a big scale like Derek did, but even just these ideas about buying the pre-sale and the things you look for, the negotiation techniques, and
Mhm.
the furnished rentals. And that's what, yes, a lot of places are just like BC is coming down on the short term, but midterm is an option. You can furnish it, and you do have like insurance companies, corporate rentals,
Mhm.
traveling medical professionals. If you're
Mhm.
near a hospital, all these different opportunities are, available to you. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I'll just add to what the point you just made to give some more ideas to people, depending
mhm.
on what market you're in. It could be blue collar corporate rentals. It could be
Construction.
white collar.
Yeah.
It could be in betweeners. They're building a home, selling a home, completion dates don't line up. It's typically in a more hot type market. You get that. Um,
So
could
with that one, with having good connections with realtors, be a like
Mhm.
networking and building
Mhm.
relationships with realtors, that would help with that in between.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. And as far as, the 3 month restriction goes, like it's such a it's such a trampling of property rights that it's just unforgivable. And for people not to be grandfathered, like I feel for the mom and pop, the firefighter who bought an Airbnb in Kelowna to help put his kids through college and now potentially being forced to sell at a loss because it's a major, you know,
Yeah.
subsidy every month. It's just outrageous.
I have three in the Okanagan.
I'm really hopeful that it's not going to stick. Because if we allow this, what's going to prevent them from saying 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? The globally recognized is 1 month plus.
Yeah.
And just to come in with no grandfathering, no notice, it's just the culling of the middle class. And, all the big names of the world that are building these towers in New West and Coquitlam that have 10 floors of furnished rentals and a hotel and unfurnished. I don't think anyone's checking them. They're the ones taking the politicians out for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a big flow to the 1%. On pre-sales, the only way that pre-sales, I learned this from Steve Suretsky, who's someone I follow with the Looney Hour. That's a really great Canadian podcast to follow. The
Okay.
Looney Hour, Steve Suretsky. But he pointed out that the only way new construction gets built, which is the only way out of this problem that we have, is guys like and gals like yourself that are willing to take a risk, put down a deposit, get them over that critical threshold. That's typically not an owner occupier that says, yeah, I like that so much that I'm going to put down a deposit and wait 4 years, maybe six
To
years
see it. Yeah.
to move in. Their life plan has changed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this, you know, basically deflating people like ourselves in BC and causing flight of capital, causing brain drain to Alberta, to the States, to Central America is just going to make it worse because I don't think anybody is buying pre-sales right now, very few.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like you say, the glass half full, that's where the opportunity is to actually really get a good deal.
Like, yeah, especially if you've got this strategy like yours in mind, where,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to set it up for, okay, you're restricting me to 90 days. I can deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of,
We'll survive. And there's even
mhm.
talk that, the mid-size operators could even be exempt as emergency housing providers, which, it just feels very communistic. And if you're on the A list, you're okay. And
Yes.
if you're not, like I believe in a meritocracy and a fair playing field. And, I want super suites to be in demand because it's the best value in the marketplace, not because I'm on some government list and nobody can compete with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully things turn around.
Scary. I've converted I have both sides of duplex in Penticton, and
Hmm.
I've converted that to co-living, so
Hmm.
renting out the rooms, and that's the only way it will work.
Hmm.
And I've got one in Peachland that was exempt, but now the municipal
That's
government has implemented theirs.
that
So
just
it
it,
was,
oh,
but
it
it
makes
will
me.
affect tourism. Like,
Oh, they
and
did.
that's where the money is. It's just
So
crazy.
we've been gathering letters of support from major companies like Fraser Health, a lot of big names that you would know,
Yeah.
and just saying specifically the need for the flexibility of the 1 month to 3 month
Yeah.
leases. A lot of them go longer, but when they're bidding on projects and things like that, they need this flexibility. The unintended consequences are going to be massive. Like Airbnb isn't like we were in 37 stratas at one point across Canada. I'm
Mhm.
always serving on 3 councils, and the Airbnb thing wasn't an issue. Like it was for a period back in the day, and Clark Wilson, the law firm, sold boilerplate bylaws to all these stratas, and nobody really in their right mind is gonna do like an Airbnb in a lot of these stratas that have that bylaw already because the
Mhm.
big fine amounts. So it would be like the odd one, and then you report it to the city and that's it. If they're doing nightly rentals, like we've never
Yeah.
done nightly rentals less than a month. But it's a non-issue. It's too heavy-handed. It's too late. Kind of like the interest rates and
It's
the
reactive, not proactive, and it's not thought through at
vote
all.
pandering. It's
Yeah.
also what the masses want because they look at that Airbnb investor. They don't want the Super 8 living next door. You're just the tall poppy, but rents are going to go up, prices are going to keep going up. It's not going to be what they
Where are
want.
these like people that need to travel for work, like the travel nurses, like you said,
I'll give
uh,
you an
where
example.
are they going to
So
stay now?
we work with 3 different staffing companies in the Fraser Valley and across Canada. And a lot of these nurses, like first it was okay, maybe they want to make their own medical decisions and they lost a lot of people. And then after that, um, a lot of them I talked to personally are saying, hey, like I'm can I use you as a reference on Furnished Finder? I'm going to the US. They're going to go where they're treated best. So they're going to go where they make money. And if they have to deal with a lousy accommodation or have all their money go to a hotel,
Hmm.
they're not coming. So our
No, they're
healthcare
not.
is going to get so much worse. Um, yeah, it's just a really ugly direction. I really hope turns around. I'm happy to be owning real estate in BC, but for people to get in and the direction that it's going, it's not pretty. And that's a big part of my kind of pivot and expansion into Texas.
Yeah. So, Derek, how can people get in touch with you?
So just Google Derek Peever, peevercon.com, supersuites.ca, supersuitesusa.com. Um, email's great, happy to schedule calls with people. Yeah, thank you
And
very
if
much
you're in
for.
any emergency situations, reach out. I did when I had my fire. Derek didn't have the accommodations that I need, but and he was answering pretty quickly when I lost
Thank
my
you.
home in a fire. So it was, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully somebody got something out of this.
Yeah, I think there were lots of nuggets there, and just like really think outside the box. And I think a lot of what you talked about was about relationships. A lot of these are building, like, so build relationships with developers,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
because that's another part of your team. Like
Hmm.
when we're talking about your power team, if you're interested in doing something like this, developers are your power team. So invest that time and build those relationships there.
Yeah, I refer to some of them as my real estate family now, and just being loyal. I think there's something to be said for that these days.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so
Hey, well,
much.
good luck with everything.
Have
Thanks,
Enjoy
Debbie.
your stay in Texas. I'm
Thank you
jealous.
so much.
I'll have to
Hey,
come
come
out and
down.
visit
Yeah,
you
come down and
sometime.
see us for real. All
Yeah.
right.
That's
Okay.
good.
Take care.
Bye.